Welcome to Accounting High.
So the fun part about being in a more traditional firm is, we talk about CAS and we talk about how this is a great opportunity. A lot of people understand the 30,000 foot view of this, but then through my experience of talking with thousands of business owners and even accountants, you learn how to listen and understand what people need and actually want versus what you think they need and they want.
This is all brand new. First, I'm hearing from somebody that's actually operating a firm that's been bought by private equity.
Hi, class is in session. It's time for Shoperations at Accounting. Hi, class is in session. It's time for Shoperations at Accounting. Hi, kids. Hybrid teams, for Pete's sake. I'm trying to manage through screens, but I can't figure out which Zoom window's my next meeting. Well, since 2012, my firm's been in the cloud. Join us as we go deep. I'll try not to run it to the ground. We're sharing profit and loss and managing back office. The tax staff just quit. Tried to hire on LinkedIn, no luck. And scope creep, team count, CAS, automate tax, compliance transactions, ID and bottlenecks. Come on, ops. Scotty, wait a minute. It's my firm, dog. I know, and I said you could run it however you want.
Introducing the star of our show,
Scotty and Steven Hoffman.
We're gonna have a problem here.
Class is in session. Students, thank you for joining me today. Oh, today's a special episode, guys. You are in for a treat. I got Steven Hoffman on with me today. And guess what, everybody? We went to high school together. I'm back in high school. What's up, homie? Thanks for joining me.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here today with you, Scotty. It's been a while.
I usually start this show by asking the guests how they got into accounting, and I tell them they can go as far back as high school. I'm going to let you do that, but first let's talk about how we got here. So you worked for Woodard.
Yes, I did. I was their chief operating officer for a little over 2 years.
I wrapped last year at Scaling New Heights. We probably crossed paths during that time and didn't even realize that we were in AP calculus together in senior year of high school. Somewhere along the lines it clicked. So you reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, did you go to Green Hope High School in 2002? And did you wrap at Scaling New Heights? And I was like, well, yes and yes.
Yeah, you're highly impressive, Scotty. It's amazing that we were sat there in AP calculus together and knew each other for so long. But even your journey and where you've come from and now on the stage that you have and what you're doing in the accounting industry, and just even having this conversation and how you're really investing in the profession. And I know this is fun. This is like passion project. You're really, this is incredible, but you're revitalizing the profession by actually doing this. And so it's very missional to me, and I really do appreciate that. So thank you for that.
And tell our students kind of how we got here. Go back as far. How did you get into this accounting space? How did you end up at Woodard?
Yeah. Thinking back in high school, I probably had no idea what the next 10 to even 20 years would look like. But I, remember going off to college, getting married really, really young, starting a family, living in Raleigh, working in the nonprofit world. And that actually opened up the opportunity for me to be able to go over to India and live in India for 4 years. While I was in India, I was a co-founder of a technology software startup company. We built applications for NFC technology. And doing that,
what's NFC for our students?
Yeah, near field communication. So when you take your phone and you unlock your door at a hotel room, or if you go to Disney and you get the little bands and you pay for everything with the band, inside of that is an NFC chip where you can do contactless payments or transactions with data moving back and forth.
Oh, dope. Okay, keep going.
And so that really opened up the door of being in business. My family owned a jewelry store for 70 plus years. I was able to work in that and understand what small business is, but then to actually get to be a part of founding my own company, that was exciting. And this was back in the late, 2007, 2008, when this recurring revenue strategy was really coming and this subscription-based model was really starting to come out and become more mainstream. And so even jumping in that, it was pretty exciting to get experience. So when I came back to America and was looking at what's the next opportunity for me, I was able to get a position with Patriot Software, and they provide payroll and accounting software for small businesses across the US. And at the time, I think I was employee number 8. We had like 800 customers, really small, but was able to build out our entire partnerships team, which was a pretty robust accountant channel. And that's what really introduced me to the accounting community. So on one side, you really love small business, really love entrepreneurs, really understood what that was from doing it even myself, to now what tools are going to be necessary to help the back office operations for these businesses through working with Patriot, and then building all of these relationships with accountants and understanding what they're going through and what their life is like and the challenges that they face as they're delivering these services to the small businesses. The reality in America is that the biggest job creator are small businesses. They're the backbone of this country. And so if we can service them and allow them and help them to become successful, not just from technology, but also service offerings, then we can really have a healthy country. And that's always been, I think, a passion deep inside of me throughout my professional career. And so as I was looking for what was next after being with Patriot for 8 years, grew them to 50,000 plus customers. We had thousands in our accountant channel, and I was ready for what was next in my career. That opened up the door to be able to join Woodard and to move from being vice president of business development to now chief operating officer, and getting to really utilize the giftings that I have in the area of operations. Yeah. With that too, I also
you got
started
the gift of gab too. You're a good talker. I remember that from high school. You're a good talker, and I think that led to a lot of your success because you were able to talk to a lot of business owners and accountants. And you've kind of like pivoted your role in each of these companies and ascended and continue to ascend in the rankings and also in your knowledge. You've talked to thousands of accountants and business owners over that time. And that led to this role at Woodard.
Yeah, and that opened up the door to be at Woodard. And, through Woodard, they focus mainly, Joe's really big on practice management and the idea of client accounting and advisory services, and how do you actually learn them and deploy them within your practice. And the reality is, in the accounting industry, the next great wave of opportunity all is with client accounting and advisory. That's what businesses really need, and that's what they need to harness. This idea of having an outside controller and doing more than just basic bookkeeping, and then also even an outsourced CFO to help them from a C-suite level make decisions and really understand their business and achieve both the efficiencies as well as the growth. And so being a part of that and helping firms bring in CAS, we even started a large firm CAS consulting group. In fact, that's being led today by Deb Deffer, who's just an incredible individual, and she's doing a great job, but she's working with many of the top firms with their client accounting and advisory, understanding it, how to deploy it, how to design CAS that will bring their companies forward. And that really just opened up my understanding to even a deeper level, and actually seeing use cases and success stories around this that ingrained me even deeper in the accounting industry. And I think I've always preached that if we're going to see some innovation and change, especially in the traditional CPA firm, we actually need non-credentialed C-suite to come in and to run, so that we can break up the bottleneck of having many partners and the slowness.
Tell me what that means, non-credentialed C-suite. So you mean people that are not CPAs coming in to run these firms?
Correct. Yes.
And why do you say that?
Because you're pulling yourself out from, there's that whole dichotomy and I think struggle of, when you are a professional, how do I manage my time between client and then administration and running the firm? And you might have a great skill set, and there might be niches that you go in as a professional to help your clients, but that doesn't always translate into building a successful, robust organization. And if you are really in a place where you want to scale and you want to grow, I think that there are certain skill sets, experience that's really necessary for that. And we see this all the time. AICPA talks about it. Accounting Today, you can read many articles. But does the partner model actually work? And it seems that it doesn't necessarily work, not for the high speed hyper growth that many firms do want to see, especially in this world of mergers and acquisitions. And so by bringing in a non-credentialed...
You can't scale a partner model.
Yeah, you can't. It's very difficult to. And so when you can break away from that and you can set up a C-suite exec team that can focus on the business and they're not lost in the business, it can make a big deal to where you're going to go as a firm, as a practice, to really hit goals, depending, again, on the makeup of that firm. While I was at Woodard, I actually got contacted by recruiters for Ascend. Ascend is a newer entrance into the accounting industry in building a network of regional accounting firms across the country. They're backed by Alpine, which is a pretty large private equity group. So they are funded through private equity, but they're extremely missional. They're on mission to revitalize the accounting industry. And so when they came to me and they said, we have an opportunity to run a firm in the Ohio area, is that something you'd be interested in? It almost forced me to really actually follow through on what I preached, right? I had to actually live out what I preach. If I say that we should have uncredentialed C-suite running firms to take them to the next level, why not jump in and actually do that and make that happen and take my knowledge, skills, and abilities from being in small business, scaling and building larger businesses through Patriot, and then being on the practice management advisory side, understanding the great big opportunity. How can that all translate into being successful as a CEO of a more traditional accounting firm? And so I jumped on the opportunity and made the switch about 6-7 months ago. And now I'm the CEO of OnPoint Tax and Accounting based in Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Kentucky.
OnPoint Tax and Accounting is the name of the firm that you're running, and is now give me the breakdown of that. Was it 4 separate firms that all joined together that became OnPoint Tax and Accounting?
Correct. So Ascend had come in and had acquired OnPoint, and OnPoint is the makeup of 4 individual firms that have come together to create one new firm format. So there's 80 years plus legacy for many of these 4 firms. So there's definitely history that's there, like in the name, building on those legacies to then deliver through a regional format, more services, competencies for our clients.
So this is literally practicing what you preach. You are not a CPA, and you came in to run these 4 CPA. It's one CPA firm, but you came in to run as the head of 4 firms that were probably very disjointed in a lot of ways. They're in different locations, and you're unifying them. Is that right too?
Correct. Yes. Walking through the full combination process. So systems, getting one system for that we utilize across all locations, processes, standardizing, documenting our processes that we have, looking for ways we can modernize some of our systems and processes that we have as well as we do that, and understand what our products and services are that we're offering to our clients. These are traditionally tax firms, so great tax clients, not heavy on the CAS side. But again, as I mentioned earlier, CAS is the major opportunity. And so we've been going through as a leadership team and creating CAS offerings and moving across our current client base with those new offerings that we've put together to test and to see, is this viable? Does this work? Is this bringing value to our clients? And is it a smart choice for our firm? And so we've been through that process as well. And that's been going wildly successful as we talk about CAS, because that is a need that clients have currently right now.
Yeah. Well, those clients you've been serving primarily tax. Tell me the ownership of these firms before you came in. Were they recently just acquired and bundled together when you came in, or had they already been running?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with OnPoint's story, 3 of the firms were acquired previously over the course of a few years. However, they really largely lived very much independent, and not a lot of combination actually occurred. They just had the similar ownership. When Ascend came in, they bought them from the one owner of the 3 firms, and then they added this 4th additional firm within the transaction. And so really coming here, in October, all 4 firms were really running very independently, even running on their old names. They didn't even transfer over, even though their ownership had changed hands over the years. And so we made that change and pretty quickly sent out client notifications, got everyone on board with OnPoint, and I've been making the transition from, again, the individual firms to understanding what it is to be one combined company.
So there was one owner of the 3 firms. Is that owner still there?
No,
No?
not currently.
Okay. So none of the owners of these firms are there. You're running them, same employees pretty much. They're operating similarly. I had this happen with a client in a psychiatrist office. Private equity came in, bought her firm, large regional firm, and they kept her ahead of it until the time was right. And I think that was like a 5-year period where she was still going to kind of run it and operate it, but they were going to slowly merge together all of these other practices that they bought in other regional areas and call them one name eventually too. But they let everybody keep their name. So in your case, all 4 of these are now running as OnPointe, or will they be eventually Ascend?
So they're going to all run under OnPointe. And I think what's very unique about the Ascend model is Ascend is building a network. And so they are acquiring partner firms that are all across the country that will keep their own identity. And they will run, but then through the network, kind of like what you see with BDO and other networks that are there, be able to partner together. There might be certain services that one firm offers that another doesn't, where you can do some client sharing so that the client can get the services that they need. We have an incredible talent directory for all the professionals where everyone can contact one another. And, we have this whole thing with BOI recently that and CTA that a lot of firms are trying to go through and figure out, how do we solve this, what's going on? And so there's a lot of knowledge sharing that occurs that's really beneficial for you to be able to grow your firm. You're really not feeling alone, and you have incredible professionals all around the country. But to be specific with your question, OnPointe is a regional partner firm, so they will remain the OnPointe identity. Now we are going to do, we're going to grow both organically and inorganically, so there will be future acquisitions into OnPointe, but OnPointe will keep its regional identity.
So this is private equity being in accounting is still fairly new. Do you know of any others that are doing similar things to what Ascend is doing?
I think Ascend sits a little bit differently than most private equity groups. Last time I've heard, there's 30 to 40 different private equity groups that are in the accounting industry working on doing roll-ups. And there are definitely some, larger firms, Cooper and others that, they've announced they've raised a certain amount of money. They're walking in and doing roll-ups as well. But for the most part, with private equity, there's the mothership, so to speak. There is the main firm, and they're rolling up acquisitions into that firm. I think the unique thing about Ascend is that, yes, there is one owner for all these regional firms, but they're keeping their regional identity. And then I think where there's an incredible value of being a part of Ascend is some of the areas such as your financial, legal, recruiting, building out your culture model, building out your talent model. That's all being, subsidized and kind of combined together with the other partner firms by Ascend. So they're really handling a lot of the back office operations, and it allows you to be highly competitive. We have great benefits because it's not like we have 50 people in one firm we're trying to provide benefits to. We're in a group of 1,500 plus employees, and you can offer better benefits through rolling up of those services. And so I think that's what makes Ascend pretty unique in the playing field and why people are watching to say what's going on here. I also think too, Ascend is not, obviously they're here to grow value and for all the stakeholders involved to realize value, but they're very missional. They're here on a mission, and again, the baseline mission is to
mission
revitalize.
Is to make money.
No,
the mission is to make more money.
It not fully. It is actually to revitalize the profession. It's to realize that we need strong accounting firms and we need accounting professionals that can really be A-level players and provide the best services and help businesses, help Main Street across America. Now, through that, yes, you're going to make money, and that is there. But even Alpine, who invests in Ascend, they're also a missional PE, which is not, we're looking for the short exit. We're here, let's get our money, let's get out. And that's what we're here for. They're really behind the mission of Ascend. And I think that's something that's really incredible. And, we're high-end millennials. We're very high-end millennials here. And so I know more millennials and Zers are looking for, what are missional companies, something that's of value. But I even think that's true for me. I want to be a part of, honestly, an organization, a network, a group that is missionally based. There's nothing wrong with making money and succeeding and doing well with what in terms on paper. But is there something bigger than that as well? And can we really touch a profession and build a model in a profession that can make it healthy and ultimately bring that value to small businesses? And that's what we're doing.
So during our conversation yesterday, you said the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, and that's an EOS phrase. And then we got to talking about you implementing EOS and putting that together. I'd like to talk about that too, but I still have some clarifying questions. So you're an employee of who writes the W-2s to everybody at OnPoint? Who's on the W-2? Like what's the company? Is it Ascend?
Ascend is, yes.
So how many employees? You said 1,500 about employees of Ascend?
Roughly across all our partner firms.
So all of those partner firms are now not getting separate W-2s and anything like that. Everything is running under Ascend right now through OnPoint and everything else that they own.
Correct.
Okay. So that's pretty dope. I'm just like trying to understand all of it here as an organizational structure. So as they acquire more, it's still underneath Ascend, but they would be OnPoint. Or Ascend could have other regional firms that may not be OnPoint, but they would still be employees of Ascend?
Correct. And you really are employees of your individual firm, but think about like the PEO model or an ASO model where, you're rolling up. And that's exactly kind of the model that they're running. So, correct. Because when you can streamline the back offices, it's the economies of scale. You can offer a lot better benefits and experience to your employees than if you were just a smaller, regional firm. So what we're really looking at is Ascend's network is creating an incredibly large firm. I mean, I think in the future, we're going to be in the top 20 and maybe even top 10 as far as firm size. But from a client experience and from an employee experience, you are working in a regional firm and it feels a lot smaller. It feels very much high touch, and you can have more of that family experience than just being, especially from an employee perspective, being an employee of a large firm. So that's what makes this model, I think, very unique, both from being a partner regional firm as well as being, a tuck-in and being able to merge your firm into maybe the regional formats that are there. And it provides that succession as well as, I think, an incredible opportunity for your employees.
Yeah. So now let's get into this EOS journey that you've been on as well. How familiar were you with EOS before you got into this?
I was familiar with it because it is definitely a great operating framework, but I can honestly say from a business perspective and being in executive leadership for a number of years, I never actually used it. So it was really great to not just read traction and know the book and say, hey, this is a great framework, but to actually live it out, build your one-page strategy, build your annual strategy, go through your quarterly strategy. It's been really interesting. It creates a really awesome operating rhythm, I think, when you're able to build your strategy and it can see it. And it's as simple as, hey, here's one page.
How many people are on the management team of OnPoint? And should I be referring to it as OnPoint now as we talk?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah, you can refer. It is OnPoint. We have 3 office leaders within our organization, and then I have a director of CAS, and then myself. So there's 5 of us all together.
Were any of these new hires when you came in?
One was, yes. Or actually, two were, and others were promoted into their position.
Promoted. Were they doing client work, or were they had an administrative type role?
Yes, they're doing client work. So they are CPA professionals that are even currently engaged in clients, but also taking a leadership role.
Okay, cool. So do you guys have an implementer or somebody that's helping you set up EOS or start doing it?
So that's another great value of Alpine and Ascend. So Alpine has a people-first methodology. And so through that, they're big on EOS and how to implement it. And so, yes, they have actually brought in facilitators that worked with our leadership team to walk through the process of implementing this. And then they provide the resources for how to build that operating rhythm for your firm in using the EOS model. And there are certain slight modifications, I think, that Alpine has come in and has brought from best practices of doing this with many different organizations. And that was also something, from being a leader, that was, I thought, really lucrative is, can you learn how to, and can you grow and develop and learn how to build, using this framework, a different operating rhythm and cadence. And they've been extremely supportive in helping us through that.
And this is a $10 million firm that you're operating. So this is high stakes, everything that you're doing.
It is.
I'd like to first talk about what's your role like as a CEO of these 4 separate tax firms. What's your day to day? What does it look like? Because this is fairly new concept of somebody running this like a business. I've talked to so many firms over the past few years. A lot of them like the idea of doing this. There are a couple that are doing it their own way. Very few though.
Yeah, that's a great question on that. I go back to our one-page strategy, and I go back to, we've created our vision, we have our values, we have our promises, we have strategic intentions that we've created on where we want to be in 5 years. We have our 1-year rocks that we have, and we have our quarterly rocks. And so that's like my guidepost, and that really guides into what my day-to-day looks like. I'm very focused on, are we accomplishing these rocks that we set? Do we have the right people in place? I always tell my staff, I'm like the orchestra conductor here. So, I'm in the front. I see kind of big picture of the people and the resources that we have. And then how do we put them in place to align to make sure that we're achieving these rocks that we need to achieve within the timelines that we set. So depending on the year, obviously you go through budget processes that you have to work on and create the budget for the firm. Once that's created, you're monitoring that as well and making sure that you're not only hitting but exceeding, right? Looking for ways that you also can be more efficient and effective. But for us, we have some very big objectives we're working on. So all of our locations had on-prem servers. We're moving to a cloud server. So we're moving through that process right now. Yes, even in tax season, certain points when we have to stop, but that's something really important because at OnPointe, we're making it that you can work how and when you want to work, which is something really important to me. So move from, having to be forced to come to the traditional office, forced to work the traditional 9 to 5 to how can that be different? How can I understand really what flex time is and how can that work depending on what my role is and what my responsibilities are? How can I, through hybrid, do I have the tools that I need in order to make that happen? And so we've been working on that implementation process on our technology, looking through all the equipment that we have, making sure that we have the right equipment, getting that purchased so that all of our professionals can have laptops and can have the docking stations, can have the setups to make, again, they can work where and how they want and make that as effective as possible. Been developing scorecards. So I think it's really important that employees know exactly what you're holding them accountable for. And again, being people first, and from what Alpine brings in, we definitely believe in employee scorecards. Being that we're a newer firm as well, what does that job ladder look like? That should also be very clear. Not only that you have my individual expectations, but what does it look like to actually move up in job levels? How do I do that? How do I get there? What's the process for applying for growth? So if I think I'm there and I want to be looked at for promotion and putting my hand up, then what is the firm doing? So building that out and creating that, and that's something that's really important. How do we grow? Developing those relationships with the community, going to the networking groups, building relationships that we've already had established from 4 firms, and then reintroducing and building them out. There's a lot of client succession that we've been working on as well, because as you have kind of alluded to or asked about earlier, we've had former, managing partners and owners that are all retiring, right? So they're leaving and walking out. And if we do have them, it's really for the client succession. So being a part of that as the CEO, not that I'm necessarily stuck in a lot of client work, although there are a few advisory engagements that I do work in with some of our clients, but with a very minimal amount of time. And then again, there are some engagements I'm working with on top of that. So that takes a lot of day-to-day in meetings, working with people, orchestrating the resources, and making sure we're honestly accomplishing the goals that we have.
So I understand you guys are primarily time-based billing for all the tax and all the legacy work that you've been doing. On those scorecards that you created, do you have a mixture of leading and lagging indicators? I mean, time is the ultimate lag. We've all talked about this, yet most firms can't get away from it. I understand, and we will talk about you in the advisory sector too and what you're building out at these firms. But the reality is most of your revenue is tax right now, and most of it is time-based billing, anything that you guys are doing internally. So what are you measuring on those scorecards?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is hard. So I've had to just from being a leader. I have to pare back being innovative and then understanding that change management can take some time. So I think for me, having to measure someone's time and their utilization is so antiquated. And I don't really know if that honestly can really drive what you're looking for efficiency and effectiveness. But I think for me, the more innovative approach is how do you measure the amount of value that you're delivering to a client and what does that look like? And so that's what we're working through now, and that's going to be a core component of our scorecards. Eventually, as we get to value billing and we move away from billable hours, I think the ultimate measurement is, in my job, how much value am I bringing? Am I building tax cases that are saving my clients an incredible amount of money? Am I investing that time? Am I understanding quite deeply some of their pain points and where they're at, and building that into that consulting advisory through the tax process, and then delivering their work on time so that they can get or understand clearly what taxes they may owe and can understand their cash flow, as well as if they are getting any refunds, how quickly can they get those back. And so that's where we're moving in the future to be able to measure employees and be a huge marker that will show success for us.
So some of those scorecard measures were like hitting deadlines, or what were some of the things on the scorecard?
Yep. Client communication. How responsive are you with clients? What is the turnaround, from a call, email, et cetera? How much value are you actually deriving for your client? And then, again, we're still have some of the traditional metrics.
How do you measure value?
That's what we're working through right now, but on a plain and dirty sense is honestly through tax planning. What are you saving clients? What are you able to find to save clients regarding their tax bill?
Are there places that they're measuring that, or they're recording that? Like, I found this savings?
That we're building that right now. That's what we're building in right now so that we can be measuring that and holding our team accountable to that.
So let's talk about the most exciting thing is this new sector of the firm that you've been building out. And that's what got you the most lit up, as we were talking yesterday, was this new revenue model, or this new way of approaching all of this extra work that you can create at these firms. So you guys are all these other opportunities to create too. So you're doing primarily tax, maybe some bookkeeping too, but now we've got controllership or advisory or cash flow forecasting and all of this other services you can offer to these businesses that desperately probably need it. Tell me about building that out, building out the CAS function of this firm.
Yeah, so the fun part about being in a more traditional firm is, we talk about CAS and we talk about how this is a great opportunity, but how do you really do it? And I think when we talked before, I just shared, a lot of people understand the 30,000 foot view of this, but then it's really hard to pare it down to like the ground level. What does that really mean and what does that look like? And you kind of brought this earlier. Through my experience of talking with thousands of business owners and even accountants, you learn how to listen and understand what people need and actually want versus what you think they need and they want. And I think that's
a hard thing for a lot of accountants. That's how we brand ourselves in most cases. That's how we talk about things, is what we think they need.
And the reality is you have to get so close to your clients that you listen and you understand what they really actually need. And in many cases, Intuit did a study years ago, and we know 80+% of business owners are financially illiterate. I don't even know that all business owners actually know what they need, to be honest with you. And that's where we're able to come in and understand that. But if we do really deep listening and we understand what our clients are missing and what the true pain points that they're encountering are, and then can come in and meet those, that's really incredible. So I really see, the role of an accounting firm, especially in the idea of CAS, of moving into the area of helping businesses translate financial operations. So it's really different than, I'm just doing your taxes, right? And when you think about financial informations, you think about data, you think about where data flows, you think about systems that you're using, you're thinking about SOPs that you're creating and the procedures that you have using those systems. And today, we can get to the place, because of cloud-based technology, to find automations that can bring, up to 80, but you could build client tech stacks that have up to 80% automation for how data flows. And then building out that roadmap to have really good data flow and clean data that's not siloed because you have a strong source of truth makes a big difference on getting that real-time data. And it's that real-time data and getting your clients to the place of real-time data that is going to move their business. Because many, and it's shocking, many business owners do not operate with real-time data and they can't get there. And that's the frustration. And so they live with almost being blinded or having very little visibility into what's going on, running their business in that way and wondering, why do I plateau? Why can't I get to the next level? Why is growth so difficult? I mean, it's not just who your marketing firm is or what your marketing strategy is. It is that financial operation aspect. And then with that, because we know in accounting firms it's so hard to get talent, well, the same thing is hard on Main Street. I mean, you put an ad out there for a controller, and yeah, you can get hundreds of applications, but you're not going to find strong, talented individuals that can come in and actually bring controllership services. And that's really a scary thing. It can be very expensive too. I mean, you could be paying $80, $90, $100,000. And if, you're anywhere from a $2 to $5 million business, you might be able to subsidize that, but that takes out a chunk of your profitability. And so if you can go to and partner with your accounting firm to be able to bring, you have basic bookkeeping, but when we talk about controllership, we're talking about having cash flow forecasts, KPI tracking, you spend management, maybe there's some sales tax, payroll, there's these higher level services that a controller will bring. They're not quite a CFO, but they're operating these back office operations for you. And we can do that cheaper outsourced than what a small business can do bringing in-house. And if we can get them to real-time financial information, provide these core services that they need, it makes the tax process so much easier, so much more visibility. And even on the advisory side, when you start going up and getting the outsourced CFO services or operational advisory, maybe even technology advisory, depending on what your firm has the knowledge, skills, and abilities to provide. But through that, you can help businesses achieve the goals that they have, grow to be strong and healthy, and live this whole life cycle with them. So, hey, even the businesses that I'm starting out or I'm taking this over, a lot right now we're seeing boomers exit, and now Xers and millennials are taking over, their parents. Even Zers are coming in and taking over their parents' businesses, grandparents' businesses. So there's succession going on, and then they want to know, how do I bring this to the next level? And you can walk with them in that journey from early on all the way through. I've acquired wealth. What do I do with that? Family office, etc., even succession of their businesses. And it can be a very rewarding journey for you, your firm, and the professionals that you have with you.
So you mentioned the size of these firms, because I think real-time data is important, but for the micro businesses, for the extra small businesses, a lot of that's overkill. A lot of the things that you mentioned is overkill. They don't necessarily need it for the extra small businesses. So is this for businesses over 2 million? Like, how are you going through, and it sounds like you're going through your current client base of all 4 of those firms. How many clients are at those firms right now servicing tax?
Yeah, we have thousands of clients.
And so now you get to eat your own dog food. You've been talking about this for years. You've been working with firms talking about building out these offerings. Now you get to actually put into practice. How did you go through that list of thousands of clients and pick the ones that you were going to start marketing these services to?
The biggest thing is having conversations with your professionals. What do you know about your clients now, and what pain points are your clients lifting up their hands? So I think the easiest fruit to pick, so to speak, are the ones that are already expressing, I have a major pain point. Your professionals in your team know it. They've just never had the service offerings to be able to meet those pain points. And so, you literally go through and do a client audit. You're talking with your team and you're identifying who makes sense to have this conversation with. And that's your lowest hanging fruit that's there.
That's the lowest hanging fruit. That doesn't sound very systematized. It sounds like you're taking and picking this person and solving this problem. Or have you turned it? So from my understanding, you've got about 12 clients on this, and they're paying anywhere from $4,000 to $15,000 a month doing services that are controllership type. Is there any uniformity among all of these? Or are you doing different things for different people?
Because we have a plethora of industry, I think that there's a couple things you have to look at, when you're offering this. And I think there are industry niches that are there. And the reason why, you do want to look at them is because that client tech stack can be individual. I think there are certain pieces of the client tech stack that carry over from industry to industry, but that niche is also something that's important. So I think we've done a couple things with customer audit. What niche do we want to focus on initially in this pilot program? Level of revenue that's there with the client, understanding where we want to be in our target price points. But I think part of the pilot was we, estimate, and we create an estimate for what we think, we've created 3 tiers of services, add-ons that could be there if they wanted at each tier. And then here's kind of the ballpark of pricing that we could see. As far as the systematizing, we look at the services and we've created spreadsheets and we've calculated, okay, what time goes into delivering each of these services? Who do we need? How do we utilize them? What are we looking at as far as our initial costs are? But again, it's still an estimate. You have to pilot to understand how does this really carry out and work? And then having those conversations with the clients to see, does this fit? Can they understand, one, what we're selling? Does this fit with what they're looking at? And what's been really resounding for us is, hands down, it hasn't been difficult at all. And I think surprising for me, no one has taken a basic bookkeeping package. They have all gone to our middle or upper tier in the services that we're providing, because the way that we are explaining it to them and showing them, it fits that pain point that they have. And
so you're pitching the value. You've got your value prop. You've got your 3 options, and you're selling them on solving that problem. And they're all going for the higher options, middle or top tier, when you're presenting this. So you're seeing a lot of early success.
And again, we're doing this as a pilot. So, I think we'll have a great conversation a year or 2 from now as you want to circle back and say, hey, what's going on? Like, how is this really growing out? But as we start going mainstream, we up our communications and we're having more conversations with a wider spread of our client base. We want to get that test group that we're walking them through and really making sure, even on the delivery side, that we're doing a great job of delivering. We have the right practice management processes in place that allow us to deliver a high level of service and understand what our profitability is against the time that we have to put into delivering what we have. So we're not looking at a wide net currently. We're definitely keeping it at the pilot level, but through doing a very extensive client audit, it enabled us to be able to reach out to the low-hanging fruit to get that pilot case together. And since we already have a relationship with them, it helped on bridging that trust, because I think with any new engagement, you're building that trust. And so what was really neat about using, current customers and expanding and cross-selling with these new opportunities is we're able to generate organic revenue, but we don't have to build this brand new bridge of trust that you would with a new client. It's already established in there.
Right. So there's no, and you're not necessarily selling them on any, you can see this as sales because it is, but you're not selling them anything. You're solving a problem for them. You're identifying what are the core problems that we can solve and then building out on there. I think this is awesome. I think this is a great lesson for anybody to take with their firm. We've talked about this many times. I've tried to do it at my firm, but the handicap that we have is I'm cheap. I'm an accountant. And I don't want to hire another $100,000 person to handle all this extra work that I'm going to bring on. I tried to do it, but I've heard of other small firms too that they hire a CFO or they hire a controller or somebody to take on this work, and then you got to backfill and fill up their portfolio, let's say. So you got somebody, you're taking a cut in your margins. It's just all of I'm creating all the excuses that all the other small firms do, and this is what we talked about yesterday. You said a lot of these $1 million practices that are similar to mine have all the excuses in the world on not to get into doing this. Do you have any solutions for these firms that are similar to mine that haven't really taken the full dive in without the resources?
You don't have to go huge. And I think what people get so afraid of is that this is going to unpen everything that they're doing. Think in terms of playbook, think in terms of strategy, that you really think about the strategy of what it really takes. you don't have to necessarily go out there. We live in a very fractional world today. And so there are a lot of fractional people that are out there that if you want to start at small scale, you could get a contractor to come and bring CFO or controller services without actually bringing them on your team. And they can be like they're on your team, but it allows you to start small scale. Just going through and creating that client list and auditing your clients and understanding your clients deeply, that's a great way to start as well, just to see if this even makes sense for services that I can offer in my firm. A lot of firms don't do that, but I think every year you should create a client. You should have your client list. You should audit your clients. You should grade your clients even if they're even a good fit for your firm, because a lot of times you have no capacity because you're willing to keep bad clients and you're scared to get rid of them. And we're going to have to let fear go. And I think part of this revitalization, and if we're going to really see the change in our industry, I think it does come to mindset. It comes to limiting beliefs. You really have to understand, am I operating with a limiting belief, or am I really using reason and logic for where I'm going? I think something that's really smart is, and the reason why I even connected with you on LinkedIn is I actually have a goal. I try to connect with someone new every single week. It's really important for me to do that. And especially in the accounting profession, it's something that's really wise to do. If you can make it a point to just talk to someone new in the profession every single week, 30 minutes, do a virtual coffee session. You never know what ideas can be implanted in you that can help you, again, build a strategy and take these small steps. What door might be unlocked to meet someone else that can help you along with moving this goal. But again, understand your clients, understand what they really need. Look for creative ways to be able to then provide the services. And again, fractionalizing it is better than just hiring full-time. Any W-2 employee is like marriage. So once you hire them, you are stuck with them. And yes, you can let them go.
Until a divorce, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still tough, right? It's still tough. With fractional, it's like, hey, here's the statement of work. Here's our agreement. Here's how we're going to work together. But you can end that whenever you want to, and there's no hard feelings on that.
Right. And that's just again, a contractor. You're basically just outsourcing some aspect of it.
And so you can allow them to come in to again, do that pilot test group, do things in a test, small scale. And then once you learned and get the learnings that you need and you have a model that can become more scalable, then you can start actually adding even more investment and really build that out. And so, and that's the big thing is I think sometimes the limiting beliefs, the fear, and can hold back from launching out and actually accomplishing and adding this as a vital part of your practice.
How do you suggest firms brand it? You and I both are not a big fan of calling this client accounting services or CAS. In the client's eyes, they don't understand what that means, and it's a double talk at that point. We're going to do your accounting services, so we're going to call it that. Like, let's brand it something nice. What are you calling it for the way you're marketing it to these clients?
It's definitely at the end of the day, what are we talking about? Financial operations as a service. So I think that I love, from our profession.
Sound like Dan Gertrudes at the Growth Lab. FAS. Growth Lab FAS. Finance as a service is what he calls it.
I mean, that's what you're really looking at. And I think there are different ways that you can describe that depending on, what niche you're in, if you specialize in a niche, or, depending on the clients that you're servicing. But that's something that they can understand. You need help with your even back office. I mean, everyone uses that term that they know. What are you doing with your back office? Do you struggle with your back office today? I mean, it's a common Main Street questions. The great part is you don't have to get super fancy. What you need to understand and identify is who's your target customer, who's that ideal customer, and then speak in terms that they can understand. And I think a lot of our websites do us misjustice because we have these highfalutin financial terminology that most people don't understand. I think churches are guilty of this too. They love to talk in theology, and yet they want everyone to come in, and it's like, well, wait a second. I mean, why don't you talk like how everyone else talks? So get in the shoes of your ideal client that you're going after, understand the vernacular that they're using, and then utilize that in whatever message you have, and they'll understand it. It will just click, and it will be like, that makes a lot of sense. And then as for price, I think the toughest thing that people deal with is price. And it is hard thinking in billable hour and what's fair and what's not fair. There really is no right or wrong pricing model. I think, the great thing again about meeting and networking with people every single week is you ask people like, how do you price things? Like, where do you start from? Start getting benchmarks and understanding what people are charging. Go to other competitor websites and look at, a lot of people are starting to put prices online, and especially around offering these client accounting advisory services. Where are they starting at? And then it gives you a great starting point of where to go. But compare with what that business owner would have to pay if they were to bring it in-house. Don't even compare it with other accounting firms or what historically you have done. And I think that is really helpful when you're having the conversation with the client, because if it costs them $90,000 to bring someone in-house and you can do it for $45,000, it's a no-brainer that they're going to work with you for the $45,000. And you don't need to lose. You can make a lot of money with $45,000. Maybe it's $70,000. Every depending on the level of service that they have, it can be different. But if it costs them $150,000 to do it in-house, even at $70,000, you're saving the client a lot of money, and that's $35,000 to $4,000 a month even more actually, $5,000 to $6,000 a month in a client engagement, and you're making a lot of money.
What about the clients that already have somebody in place that are paying somebody that much? Do you approach them too to say, look, we can take over what this employee is doing?
We've actually done that. And so the person on the team was so invaluable to them. They didn't lose them. They were a 6-figure salary winner, but the company had so much going on and such incredible growth that we actually relieved them of a lot of stress, because they could now take this highly talented individual and put them on other and enrich their job of responsibilities. And so we have taken a major part off their plate, and now the owners are actually breathing a lot more and feeling a lot better about the direction of their company, because their highest performers can actually focus on other areas that bring growth instead of their back office. And now their back office is taken care of. It's actually cheaper for them to deliver it. And the money that they're spending on that employee is going into growth.
This is dope. So one of the most important things I think you said here, and I think that I'm starting to understand that, is it isn't just money. There's mission-based. And a lot of us roll our eyes at that kind of stuff because private equity and what we've seen in the past and just what money does to a lot of this. So there is a lot of hesitation when people start talking about private equity. Just building that trust is difficult when you've seen all the horror stories out there. The important thing to note is this generation does actually care. We're the elder millennials, you and I. We both just turned 40, but the Gen Zs and a lot of the generations, they care about the impact that they're going to have and what they're going to do to this world too. And I think that's very important when you're running a business. And it sounds like everything that you're talking about how it benefits the client, and you're looking at the client first. It's not how it benefits the firm. Nowhere did you tell me how much this is helping you guys and at the firm. So far, everything I've heard is just external focused. And that's a product of having the right core values, the right mission, and driving a firm to understand what that culture could mean. And you're doing that in a way that's different with these siloed partnership models where you're basically just following the person in charge. There's always 20 people in charge with these models, 15 partners, 20 partners, all of this. And you're just working for that one. So there is no culture across the whole company. You're creating this, and it's new to a lot of these people at OnPointe. They're probably not, half of them are probably still skeptical, and they haven't even bought in yet. But it's only your actions that are going to really facilitate that buy-in. And your words, your actions, what you do and how you act, that's all you're good for at the end of the day too. So I don't know. I'm liking what I'm hearing. I like this whole new approach to all of this. This is all brand new to me. It's the first I'm hearing of from somebody that's actually operating a firm that's been bought by private equity. And you came in without being at the firm. They hired you. They placed you there. Was there anybody else that they placed there at this, or were you did you make all the other hires, the new people?
Yeah, I was the one that they placed, and then I've been making hires as we've been adding people to the team.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating. This is so cool, and I do plan on having you back at next year. See, when you and I were in high school, we only had 1 year together, and I remember it clearly in AP Calc. We were both in that smart math. You were one of my only friends in that class because everybody else was like people that I didn't hang out with. It was always like, all right, Scott's going to AP Calc now. I ended up, I guess, doing something with the math. I'm in accounting. You're in accounting. I mean, we took entirely different paths to get to where we were at. But that was a trip too. I know we were just talking about this. It's like toward the tail end of the episode, and we can say, you and I were experienced 9/11 together too in school. That was an entirely that was life changing as well.
It was. We were in AP Calc together, and that's when they actually turned on the TVs, because I think it happened a little bit before that. And then we got into class, and I remember Miss Collins, turning on the TV, and we were like, what? And then they actually released us from class, because in Raleigh, we were right by the nuclear plant, and they were worried about that getting affected. And so they had us all go home. So we actually left that class and went home. Remember that. I mean, it's funny. There's some things you remember and some you don't. The older you get, the harder your memory is. But remember that so clearly, and it's pretty incredible. But yeah, it's just been really fascinating just looking back now of 20 years of, being in the workforce and growing up, being an adult, being in places of leadership. I mean, you're running your own practice, and you have people that are leaning into you and your leadership. And obviously you're bringing it in a wider scale through your influence. And it's an honor. It's an honor that we're able to be at this place today. And it's definitely a torch that I'm not taking very lightly, but I take very seriously, because if we can, through our generation and the next generations coming up, take this torch and revitalize this profession, that will, I believe, will really translate into how we impact our country. And now, as we're in a global economy, countries, that's so necessary. And we can put aside everything we're listening and hearing, all that negativity, but we're on the ground, we're in it, we're bringing incredible amount of value, and we're doing it through a profession that is so weighty and so important. And so what an incredible day we have. I mean, I'm very excited, and I'm very hopeful for the next 10 to 15, 20 years that I have left. I always tell people, man, I turned 40 and it's just begun. Like, this is so exciting. Like, I just feel like now I'm just like in the seat getting ready to go. This is really an incredible experience.
You're in the driver's seat, and this is all, you're on a new ride too. So that's got to be fun. I know our listeners, our students know that that's just happened with me too, with this whole rap thing and all this other stuff I'm doing with the show and all the other fun activities, because it just feels all brand new now too. And maybe that has to do with us just turning 40. Maybe we were looking for something new, for that next spark and that next part of our journeys to keep things fresh. But at the same time, we're synthesizing everything that we've learned through all of those years and applying it to what we're doing. You in a much different sense, but it's all the same. That's dope.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to ride us out. Peace out, homies. Class dismissed.